Today, well, we are strapping in for a really ambitious journey.
Mm.
We're going beyond, the brain and the body for a metaphysical investigation into the nature of the self. And we're basing this on some incredible excerpts from The Essence of the Soul and Its Perception.
That's right. And our mission today really is to help you get a shortcut to what the author's trying to say here.
Okay.
Basically, to dismantle that narrow view,
Yeah.
often religious, that the soul is some kind of static object you have.
Right, something you possess.
Exactly. And replace that with a dynamic, creative, multidimensional understanding of what you fundamentally are.
And the source material immediately challenges the words we use, doesn't it? It insists this being or the self, it's not some static gem.
Yeah.
It's fluid, energetic, constantly expanding. I find that fascinating right off the bat.
The authors really push past it. They prefer being or self.
Why is that specifically?
It's simple, really. When we say soul, most of us, we picture a finished thing, something static.
Big heirloom in a box, yeah.
Exactly, like a treasured heirloom, something completed, put away. But the source is really emphatic. The self is alive, it's reactive, it's curious.
Always learning,
always changing. It has to be. It's not an heirloom. The source calls it more like an infinite creative power plant.
Wow. Okay, so that immediately emphasizes dynamism,
Yeah.
this idea that the self is always in a state of becoming.
Always.
But doesn't that sort of challenge everything we think about achievement? If it's always becoming, what's the goal? How do you know when you're done?
And that's the key distinction, the philosophical shift the source makes. See, in our three-dimensional reality,
Our everyday world.
where our conscious self mostly operates, becoming implies a finish line, a final destination.
Right. You become a doctor, you become enlightened, you cross the finish line. We need that endpoint.
We're trained to look for it, to check off the box.
Yeah.
Precisely. But the self, fundamentally, exists in other dimensions.
Okay.
Dimensions where completion just doesn't work like that. It doesn't rely on reaching some specific point in time or space.
So it's not linear.
Not at all. The being exists in this constant state of flow, learning, developing, but it's all tied to subjective experience, not the clock on the wall. It's always expanding, always experimenting. You actually can't fail because there's no final endpoint to miss.
Okay, that completely shifts the framework. So if this being is so vast, this infinite creative power plant, then what is the small everyday me? The person listening to this deep dive right now.
That's the conscious self,
Yep.
or you could call it the ego.
The ego.
Think of the soul, the greater self, as maybe
Yeah.
like a spiritual operating system. It's vast, this infinite library of knowledge, potential.
Got it.
The ego, that's just the current user interface.
Huh. Okay, I like that analogy.
And the ego is naturally intensely focused on the here and now. It has to be, right? To navigate material reality. It sees itself as the captain steering the ship.
And it definitely enjoys feeling like it's in command.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's the crucial detail the source points out. The ego is the outer self, sure, but it's security. It's apparent command. It relies completely on continuous, often subconscious support and communication from the inner layers.
From the operating system.
Exactly, from the OS. There are always these psychological, spiritual channels open between the layers. The ego actually accepts this vital inner data, sudden flashes of intuition, gut feelings, even if it likes to pretend it came up with it all by itself. It doesn't always know where that wisdom came from.
So when I get a brilliant idea, seemingly out of nowhere, that's actually the infinite self pushing data up to the little user interface.
That's the idea. It's the library informing the planner. The source uses another analogy here about the body. We call our body a single unit, me. But really, it's made of billions of living cells. Each one has its own kind of local consciousness.
Right, doing its own thing but cooperating.
Exactly. The source calls them clumps of consciousness, all working together to form the unit we call our body.
So we're basically a collective.
You are. Now apply that same idea to your infinite self. Your soul, your being. It's capable of expressing itself in, countless forms, countless personalities across different realities.
Oh.
The current personality, the one you identify with right now, today, that's just one manifestation, one specialized focus of your soul.
Just one channel.
Sort of, yeah. And the self is always greater than the sum of its parts. It contains all the accumulated wisdom, the knowledge, every experience from every manifestation it has ever created.
That is That's a staggering picture of identity and abundance, really.
It is.
So if the soul is defined by this kind of infinite identity, what's its main function? What does this infinite being actually do all the time?
The source identifies two primary attributes, and they're inseparable: perception and creation.
Perception and creation.
Yeah. The soul is, at its core, a perceiving unit of consciousness, and it creates reality based on what it perceives.
Okay, let's talk about perception first, because our physical senses seem to define everything for us, right? My eyes see this, my ears hear that.
And that's the interesting part. The material world is created by the soul, yes, but our physical senses, they act like highly specialized translation software.
Translation software, how so?
Well, they force raw perception, this vast underlying reality, into a specific physical mold. They take the spiritual reality underneath everything and translate it only into material data.
Into things that feel solid, separate, outside of us.
Exactly. Things that feel solid, confined, external. It's like we're wearing goggles that only let us see one frequency, the material one, which is why our reality often feels so finite, so limited.
Makes sense. So what's the soul's true perception like then, without the goggles?
The soul's true perception, as the source describes it, it bypasses this physical filter completely. It perceives the spiritual activity, the events beneath what we call physical events. Direct experience, yes. It's complete. And it exists outside of our concept of time. Time, the source says, is basically just a material disguise.
A disguise. So physical events are just the packaging.
That's a good way to put it. They're the visible packaging for the much deeper spiritual event happening underneath.
Okay, this brings us to the creation part, and maybe why we often feel so stuck. If the soul is creating reality, why do I feel powerless sometimes to change my circumstances?
Because we get confused. We identify only with the ego, the user interface, and forget about the OS.
Yeah.
The fundamental realization the source pushes is this: thought and emotion create material reality. That ability to concretize thoughts and feelings into form, it's an inherent attribute of the soul. It's what it does.
Right.
But when you cling to that narrow idea that you are only the ego, that you're somehow disconnected from that immense creative power plant, well, then you feel powerless.
You think reality is just out there happening to you.
Exactly. Static, permanent, external. Rather than seeing it as a living projection of your own inner state, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs.
We forget the user interface is constantly running on the infinite power of the OS.
Yeah.
We think the little screen is all there is.
Precisely. We stop using the creative ability of the self, that connection, and we just end up reacting to whatever's currently displayed on the screen.
Okay, that brings us back perfectly to what might be the listener's core concern here. If the soul is constantly flowing, growing, even manifesting in multiple personalities, what happens to me? The specific, unique person I feel like I am, the one I cherish, is my identity just lost in the flow?
That's a really important question, and the source offers some profound reassurance on this. It says that the individual personality you cherish, your current consciousness, with all its unique memories, experiences, your specific flavor, is never destroyed or lost.
Never lost.
It's described as an indestructible, unique part of the greater self. It continues to exist, to grow, to develop, sure.
But it remains itself.
Yes, it's never separated from the soul, but, and this is critical, is never swallowed by it either. It maintains its unique identity even as it contributes its experiences back to the whole.
So it's not about stagnation versus change. It's more like eternal dynamic identity, constant growth as yourself.
That's a great way to put it. That's the distinction. The source is really explicit. The soul is not a closed system. It's not an unmoving fortress.
Right, because a fortress keeps things out.
Exactly. Which prevents development, prevents expansion. The soul is defined as an open spiritual system, a creative power plant, constantly exploring, constantly sending out feelers. Your personality is one unique, dynamic, self-aware stream of that creative power.
That really is a radical redefinition of immortality, isn't it? Not just existing forever, but growing and becoming forever.
Precisely.
Now, you mentioned the source material aims to be practical. So how do we, as the ego, as this user interface, actually connect back to this powerhouse? How do we access that direct, intuitive knowledge more consciously?
Right. Because theory is great, but application is key. The source provides a Well, a simple but apparently effective exercise for this.
An exercise, okay.
Yeah, it's designed to help you temporarily bypass the linear logic of the ego, the constant chatter, and access that inner reality more directly.
Okay, tell us how it works. I'm sure people listening will want to try this.
It basically has 3 steps. First step, sit quietly, close your eyes, and try to move past just thinking. Instead, try to feel the source of dynamism within you.
The life force.
Yeah, the internal life force, the energy that powers your breath, your vitality, right there inside the physical body. Don't analyze it, just sense it. Feel the energy.
Feeling the engine running, not trying to read the instruction manual.
Exactly like that. Good analogy. Second step. Once you have some sense of this internal source, imagine that power flowing out from you, radiating
Power.
in all directions. See it or feel it moving through your physical body, out through your pores, into the air around you. Keep extending it outwards into the environment.
Just through the room, maybe?
Yeah, through the room, maybe through the leaves on a tree outside, up to the clouds. Just keep extending that sense of connection out to the ultimate reaches of the universe in your imagination.
Expanding your sense of self way beyond just your skin.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then the third step is really a confirmation or an understanding. The source then says this isn't just symbolic visualization.
It's not just making pictures in your head.
Well, it starts with imagination, yes, but the exercise is built on the underlying fact, according to the source, that your consciousness and your creative energy actually does radiate outward in this way.
So you're tuning into something real.
You're actively exploring your own electromagnetic energy field, maybe. You're consciously reconnecting the user interface to the vast network of the operating system. That's the idea.
Wow, what an incredible tool to explore. And it perfectly caps off this deep dive, really. We started by sort of dismantling the idea of the soul as this static object you have.
Right, the heirloom.
And replacing it with this boundless, creative, ever-expanding energy field that you are.
Exactly. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the power of perception and creation we talked about, the source leaves us with one final and I think deeply provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
It suggests that consciousness itself, the fundamental ground of being, isn't actually built on our human preconceptions of good and evil, not in the way we usually define them in material terms.
How does it see them then?
The self, the soul, it knows that what we call good and evil are merely different manifestations, temporary expressions of a much larger, ultimately unified reality. They're part of the creative exploration.
Yeah.
Which raises a really important question for you, for anyone listening to consider. If you started viewing your own consciousness, your own creative power, not through that narrow lens of judgment, limitation, good versus evil, but through that boundless lens of eternal creativity, what kind of reality might you start creating tomorrow?